Hi folks, it's Rob Flux here from Property Developer Network coming to you for yet another of our Sunday sessions. Today I am with two illustrious guests. I have Tony Meredith and the lovely Kylie Walker. And we're going to be talking to you today about, do you get stuck? And we're going to try and reveal 7 critical things that are actually stopping you from taking action. Going to do that very much in a conversational sense. We've got some pretty awesome topics with those 7 steps that 7 critical things, and we're just going to go through all the different nuances of those. So firstly, I would like to welcome Kylie and Tony to the stage. Come on board, guys. Yay! Unmute yourself, guys. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Hello, Rob. This is so exciting.
How are you, mate?
Mate, I'm doing really well, thanks. Really well. Had a great weekend, a busy weekend, and what a way to finish it off, hey? Having a chat to you two. So a real privilege. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know who Tony and Kylie are, so Tony and Kylie are both coaches within our Property Development Formula program. Tony has been with us right from the very, very start, and Kylie has been with us for the last 6 months or so. And it is your roles to I guess, kick everyone's butt and make them actually take action, and then pat them on the back when they're actually doing that in a range of ways to do that. And it's largely because the mindset is really at least 50% of whether or not people are actually doing anything in the property realm.
Absolutely. And, you teach amazing stuff in your program, the knowledge, the depth of knowledge, the processes, the system, etc. But it's the taking action that's the bit where people tend to come unstuck. And they always start full of enthusiasm but then it's about keeping that going. So we're going to explore, some ways that we can get people moving forward, and, because it's all around taking action towards where you want to get to.
And more importantly, whilst we're talking about it inside a property sense, it is not just a property sense that this applies. It actually applies everywhere in life. And so we can apply these 7 things that we're going to be talking about anywhere. And I highly encourage people to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
So Kylie, you're being very shy. Say something.
Oh, well, I can add to this and say that from my personal experience, from having done many things over the years and also coach a lot of people over a lot of years, is that we can know so much content and so much information, but unless we can get out of our own way, then we're never going to apply that information. So coaching is a very important aspect of personal development and helping you to achieve your goals.
And knowledge without action is not knowledge at all.
It's information gathering.
Absolutely. And we're not here to have practice runs. We're here to actually do it. So topic number 1, we said 7 things. So number 1, your purpose or your why. So why the heck are you doing this in the first place? I would have to say that when that question is asked to most people, the stereotypical response that I hear has variations around, I want financial freedom. But when you try to drill into what does that mean to you, a lot of people really, really struggle with being able to articulate what that actually means and why that's actually important to them.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing with that, Rob, is there's so many ways that you can make money. Right? You don't have to make money in property development. You can do shares or foreign exchange or sell things on eBay or whatever, right? Start a small business. And so it's not about the money side of things. Money, for me, is a byproduct when you do the thing that you love, when your feet hit the floor in the morning and you have this urge to just bound out of bed and get into that thing that you love, you're going to be far more successful at it. And that's where the money comes in. And so it's about challenging yourself. If it's property development that you want to do, why property development and money, as you said, mate, is not the answer. Because the journey of property development, as we all know, is a journey that has plenty of these, but also plenty of those as well. And so it's about getting you through the ups and the downs to take you to where you want to get to. So you really need to be clear on, what your why is. In fact, it's the very first question that we ask the students when they come into the program, above everything else, like, this is a property development program, but we actually want to focus on why do you want to do this in the first place?
And some people think their why has to be a really big thing. So for everyone, your why is different. For some people, it's they want to be able to give back in a grand scale. And I've had coaching sessions with some people where they go, I just don't have a why like that. I don't have something that's massive that's drawing me in a big scale. So really, it's about what is it that you feel drawn to. So is it a big why, or is it something that's just smaller and more individual? Is it that you want to be the best mum that you can be and be a great example for your children, or do you want to be able to give back to your family? It doesn't have to be setting up a massive charity and doing all of this massive stuff overseas or whatever that may be. Like a lot of people, like we've suggested in our coaching sessions, Tony, is, sit back and think about the things that you just love to do. When you're not trying to think about what your why is, what are you naturally drawn to? So for me, in a coaching sense, I love hearing about people's stories. So I'll sit down and watch Australian Story or read an autobiography.
Yep.
So I know I'm on my right path here because I just love hearing about people, and particularly their stories of overcoming adversity. So if you can find that thing for you and, work out what it is that you just feel, drawn to and that you just wake up thinking about, and then it excites you, that's the path to then be following and exploring more.
And sit with it, right? It's not necessarily going to come to you the first time. And I use my example quite openly, where I started off my journey, getting into property development and saying to myself that I love property development. Property development's, all they wanted to do. And I realized along the way that I like property development. I like what it can do for me. I like the financial rewards. I do like, a number of elements of it. But there's plenty of things that I don't like about property development. But I discovered that I loved this coaching thing. I discovered that I had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, how are you having some early success? What is it that you're doing? I also at that time had gone and lost a heap of weight as well. So I had plenty of people come up to me and say, hey, how have you been able to go and lose this weight? And I had this light bulb moment when it's like, I'm meant to be a coach. So my journey started off wanting to get into property development. And even though I'm still in it, but I absolutely love being able to help people move forward in business, and property is a business.
Absolutely. And I think probably the key element that people forget when we ask them what is their why, that it's probably the benefit of the benefit that they really need to be searching for. So the benefit is financial freedom, but the benefit of the benefit is, what are you going to be doing with that freedom? So what is the, when you have the ability to do anything that you want, what is it you are going to do? And a lot of people struggle with that. They've not actually thought about, geez, once I make it, like, what does that look like? What will I do? Will I travel? Will I spend time with the kids? Will I, and I think a lot of people are not in touch with that benefit of the benefit.
Well, it's the emotion, right? So our minds are sorted based on emotion, and it's about creating an emotion. And so money is paper, right? There's not a lot of emotion to the money, but it's the what does it do, to your point, Rob? So it's the, hey, once I have that, then I'll be able to do this, which means that I'll be able to have family experiences, which means it's going to, create enormous amounts of happiness for me. So 3 words that you could use, or a question that you could ask yourself is, for what purpose? So when you come up with, hey, I want to get into property development because of the money, for what purpose? For what purpose? You keep asking yourself those questions, and perhaps you ask it 4 or 5 times, and then you get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then bang, you hit the thing that is the reason for you wanting to do that. So it's tied up in the emotional side of things. And I use the example in a negative sense of how our brain sorts by emotion. If I say to people, can you remember where you were on September the 11th, 2001? Then everyone that I talk to will say yes, and they'll be able to articulate what they were doing, right? That was the day of the World Trade Center bombings. But if I say to people, what were you doing on August the 11th, 2001? They have no clue. Right? They have no clue what they were doing because it's emotion. So then when you move in a forward sense, it's around incorporate an enormous amount of emotion into what you want your future to look like. And it's going to be this gravitational pull that's going to pull you towards it, right? And that's the thing, Rob, we often talk about the difference between, pushing and pulling. You can push for so long, but I see a lot of people who are pushing and you run out of steam. But when there's something that's in front of you and it just feels like this magnet that's just drawing you to it, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about goals in a second, and push goals and pull goals and the like. But I guess what are some key tips for people to actually get in touch with their purpose or their why?
Yep. So first tip, make time. We don't like to sit with our thoughts. Like, it sounds so simple, right? But take the time to sit with your thoughts. Figure out, like Kylie said before, work out when is a time when you're just in flow. When is the time when life just seems so effortless, right? So just sit there and be with your own thoughts. That's a really good place to start. We use the model Ikigai in the program, which is 4 intersecting circles. And it talks about
what a fantastic segue. Because
there we go.
I was just about to show the Ikigai.
Anyone would swear that this has been scripted, Rob.
So go for it, mate. I'll do the button pushing. So let's talk about Ikigai. So
the top circle should say, what do you love? Well, there you go. Ta-da, terrific. And so what is it that you love doing? How do you love to spend your time, right? And so the next circle should say, what are you good at? Yeah, correct. And so what are the things that you're good at? You've got a whole lot of skills in a whole range of things. What is it that you're good at? The next one talks about what is the world... in between, sure.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the intersection of that is your passion. And a lot of us are good at things that we love. And, that's a passion that we don't necessarily make money out of. And we struggle with, do we make a career out of that and that sort of thing? And Ikigai kind of helps us to try and harness that a little bit better. So...
and these are the first 2 questions that you should ask anyway in this order. What do you love and what are you good at? And that's a good place to start. But as Rob said, it's not the end of the story, because you can be passionate about something, but if you're not making any money out of it, then it could be a hobby, right? So the next one is, what does the world need? Don't get hung up with the word world need. What does someone else need? Right? Where's there a gap in the market? Now, if you love something and the world needs it, but it's not necessarily a passion of yours, then it's a mission, right? Absolutely. So you're doing some really great stuff. It's incredibly great humanitarian, but you may not be good at it, and you definitely don't get paid for it.
Yeah, and the last one is that which you can actually get paid for. And there's a couple of intersections that come from that. So if you're good at it and you get paid for it, that's a profession. That is your day job. That doesn't mean you like it. As a matter of fact, most of us don't. And statistically, 80% of people get paid, don't like their job. So we have this profession that is, for many of us, demotivating us. And it drags us around, and it tends to be something that we put so much effort into getting further in our career and that sort of thing. And in the end of the day, we hate it. Well, so many of us do. And the last intersection, is does the world need it, and can you get paid for it? And that's a vocation. And Ikigai is right in the we can forget those ones. They're a little bit too complicated. But Ikigai sits right at the center. So you love it, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you get paid for it. And if you can find that, then if you're loving it, it doesn't feel like work. If you get paid for it, then, fantastic. And you're getting paid because the world needs it, and you're good at it. So, that's the perfect outcome. And I don't think many of us have actually put the time in to try and capture where we fit in that little quadrant.
No, and it could take a day, a week, a month, a year. Some people, go forever and may not find that purpose, as Kylie said, but it doesn't need to be this all-encompassing, huge change the world type thing. It might be enough just to get you moving in a forward direction, and your purpose can always change as well. So it doesn't have to be, this is my purpose for the rest of my life. This is my purpose for now. This is my purpose in the short term, but perhaps down the track, it can change. And what we encourage the students to do is take those same 4 headings and just put it into 4 columns, right? So what do you love, good at, world need, and what can you get paid for? And do it in 4 columns and just write with this. Now, here's the thing in property development, don't just write in property development, right? Because there's so many elements of property development. So get incredibly granular with this. There'll be parts of property development that you really, really love, and there'll be parts of property development that you really, really loathe. And that's okay. This is about working out what's the bit that you love. So get granular. So it might be that you love doing physios. It might be that you love speaking to agents. It might be, that you love searching for properties, etc. So get as granular as you can with this exercise.
And Kylie was going to say something, and Tony, you I've just done the same.
I've got to be fast here. So a lot of people are living in survival mode and they've never actually asked themselves these questions. And that's why it can feel so big for some people and so daunting. So when we get out of survival mode, what does life then look like for you? So these questions are so helpful to help you get past the life that you're living in right now, if that's the space that you're in. But you can really create a different future for yourself based on asking yourselves these questions, and then to start taking the actions and start moving towards that.
There you go. So I think we've nailed topic number 1, and that's our purpose or our why. Are we all in agreement with that, folks? Awesome. Yes. So number 2, our goals. So what is it that we actually want to do? Without having a plan for where we want to go, if you don't know where you're going, then every bus on earth will get you there. Like, how do you know when you've arrived if you don't even know where it is that you want to get to?
And it's surprising that the number of people we speak to that have never actually set goals before. So we do a lot of goal setting in the initial stages of this program. And for some people, it's a very new experience. So it's so important to know what you're aiming for.
Well, it's the saying, if you aim at nothing, that's exactly what you're going to get. Yeah, and the analogy that we use is the GPS. You don't go to a new destination, type in the suburb and hope miraculously that you arrive wherever you're trying to get to. You type in the street number, the street name, the suburb, and guess what? You arrive. And our minds work exactly the same way. So the clearer that you can be on what you're going for, the easier it's going to be. Am I on or off track? And I know, Rob, in the program, you talk about a 5-year goal, a 5-year plan for everybody. And then the case is once you've set that, you then work your way backwards. Now, if you're at home and you're going, oh my gosh, 5 years seems too far into the future. Hey, that's cool, as long as you've got something in the future. So I've had clients who work with me, they've set a 1-month goal, because they were suffering from anxiety and they found it really difficult to set something too far into the future. Perhaps it was a bridge too far. So it's about just working out where you are. Self-awareness is so important to all of this stuff. Figure out where you are. If you can set a 5-year goal, awesome. And that's the end in mind. So I read a book, Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about begin with the end in mind. Right. And so that's how you should apply this to your goal setting. Begin with the end in mind. What's the end look like? And then what you do is you join the gap between where you want to be and where you are today.
And for some people, when they're setting goals and they're not doing the work that it takes to achieve them, what I've uncovered with people is they actually weren't their goals. They weren't the goals that they really wanted for them. It's the goals that they thought that they wanted, or that sounded good, or that maybe came from an ego space. But if you find that you're setting goals and you're just not doing anything towards them, you need to stop and check in with yourself and say, hey, is this something that I actually really want? Did I want this in the past and maybe it's no longer relevant for me, or I've changed, or things have changed in my life? It's so important. If you find that you're off track and just not getting anywhere, is this actually what you're striving for now? Is it going to bring meaning and purpose to your life? And if not, it's always okay to set a new goal.
And what you're saying is people think they want something like that, and they end up taking action, something a little bit more like that.
It's too funny. Too funny. I've seen that 100 times, and it's still I still get a great deal of pleasure out of seeing it.
Yeah, and because we're not I don't think many of us are actually realistic with our goals. We're sold these pipe dreams of what we think is possible, but in reality, if it's a little bit too far, we tend to have it as a demotivator. It has to be something that certainly stretches us, but has to be something within our capabilities and within our reach.
Yeah, I call this the January the 1st syndrome, right? It happens every January the 1st, where people set a myriad of different goals around weight loss and cigarettes and drinking and promotions and small business, whatever it might be, or health and wellness. And come the middle of January, what happens? Right? We all nosedive. And for the reasons that Kylie talked about, we're not committed. We're not committed. The goal doesn't mean enough to us. It's like, you know what? I've gone and read the Forbes top 10 rich list. I've seen that the top 10 people are involved in property. Guess what? I'm going to make my career out of property. And go back to point number 1, which was, why do you want to get involved in this? And point number 2 is then get really, really clear on the thing that you're aiming for. right? And not just clear on what the end is, but clear on then what the pathway is between the two. Because here's the thing, a lot of people go, well, I've got a 5-year goal. Nah, I'll get to that down the track. I'll do that later. But each and every day, there are things that you can be doing that take you towards where you want to get to, right? And so you might delay something for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month or whatever. Well, guess what? Then it's taking you further away from where you want to get to. So, it's about working backwards and figuring out what is my pathway to get me, 5 years, 1 year down the track.
And sorry, go for it, Kylie.
I was going to say, the simulator that you've created, Rob, which we go through with students, is such a perfect example of being able to visually map out goals for people. So when they come into sessions with us and go, oh, this is what I want, and it's kind of like a little bit unformulated, and they want that, but they kind of can't really see that it's possible for them. Then we go through the simulator, Rob, you do your magic and do your thing, and they come away from the session going, oh my gosh, I can actually see how this is possible, and it's a realistic goal, and it's broken down into a step-by-step time frame with milestones. And what it also does is it takes the urgency away from having to achieve them. So for some people, they come, as an example, into this program, they've got to take action. They're like a bull at a gate going 50 million miles an hour, and then they slow down and they have this stop-start kind of activity happening, at some stages. And when you look at the overall plan that Rob goes through, you work out the time that you have to work through each stage of achieving your goal. And when you stay on track, you can achieve that without the stress, without the urgency, without the desperation that some people attach to achieving their goals. This is meant to be an enjoyable process. Yes, it's meant to stretch you. It's meant to be hard sometimes. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't be growing as a person. We all have to do hard stuff all the time if we want to continue to grow and develop personally and professionally. So, you've got to do what you've got to do and stay on track. And having those visual, what would you call it, Rob? Visual
cues, a vision. You have a vision. You've got cues. It's got something in front of you. The other thing that has only just become apparent to me, probably in the last couple of months, is that as kids we were told the fable around the tortoise and the hare, and I don't know what happened to me a couple of months ago, but it came and sort of hit me in the face, and it's like, wow, I didn't think much of it as a kid. But it's so true that, to take your point, Kylie, it's like, rather than, going like a bull out of gate and running out of steam after week 2 or week 4 or whatever, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. And guess what happens? You look back and you go, oh my gosh, like how amazing was that, as opposed to going flat out and then just running out of puff.
Well, it comes down to, there's probably a couple of different quotations from a lot of famous people sitting out there that tend to reinforce each other, but Bill Gates famously said that we will overestimate what we can do in 12 months and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And we tend to have this false belief that we're going to get there in that 12 months time. And so we start out with a sprint. So to touch on what you're saying, Tony, and when we don't achieve in that 12 months time, because we started as a sprint, a lot of us tend to actually give up. Now, you compound that with one of Einstein's famous quotes, and that is that compounding interest is actually the thing that actually generates the most amount of wealth. And that's the same with knowledge, compounding knowledge. And so we have to front load all of our learnings and lessons right at the very start of this, and it starts paying off at the tail end. And when we go through the simulator that Kylie was talking about, so for those who aren't in our program, the simulator is really showing people what is physically possible within inside the 5-year timeline when you have a look at projects to see how you can actually achieve that financial freedom goal. When we show that, most people haven't actually had a payday in their first 12 months. I'm going to say the majority of them don't. And yet they're able to achieve the financial freedom in 5 years. And a lot of them go into many other programs thinking that the 12 months is going to get them the financial freedom. And the reality is it won't. What it'll do is it'll set you up for financial freedom, but you still have to keep taking action for the remainder and keep compounding that knowledge and compounding that growth.
I think the other thing too, Rob, is that people get impatient. You talked about it, people don't have success in that first 12 months. I'm going to argue it's actually even shorter than that. People want success like, in 2020, everything we want things instantly. We want our food delivered instantly. We want to do something on Facebook and have a like instantly. We want all these things instantly, right? And that's not how it works in property development. Yet so many people go, well, I tried this for a week, I tried it for a fortnight, I tried it for a month, it didn't work, I'm out. As opposed to stick with it, stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. And when you stick with it long enough, you're going to be phenomenally successful.
And I think it's because I'm going to say the stigma within our industry is that for many, many, many years, it has actually been sold as a get-rich-quick scheme. And there's pictures of people sitting in front of Learjets and leaning on Ferraris and things like that that show you what, the lifestyle that you want to become accustomed to. And yes, it's absolutely possible, but it's not day one. And if you come in thinking it's day one, that's where we'll trip up.
Exactly. So be patient. Be patient. Take plenty of action, but be patient with the outcome, with the result.
And I think consistency is the key. I think consistency is so underrated. Consistency is what equals your success. It's taking that daily action day in, day out, no matter how you feel. It's getting up, dressing up, showing up, doing the stuff that you don't want to have to do, but you know that you need to in order to achieve your goals.
I remember, Rob, for you, that was one of the things that when I first heard you speak, it was in front of your townhouse complex, and you got up on a milk crate and you spoke and you said, just do one thing each and every day. Obviously, there's days when you're going to need to do a whole lot more, but just do one phone call or one email as a very minimum. As a very minimum, that always stuck with me.
Yeah. So, Kylie, I don't know if you meant that before, but that's what is called a triple utterance. So, do you want to say that again for people to? So, you said get up, show up, and what was the other one?
Get up, dress up, and show up.
There you go. That is a triple utterance. It's one of those things that's really catchy and easy to for people to remember. If you haven't yet, you should trademark that.
So look for that post to come out on the Property Developer Network social pages in the next few hours, few days. So
Kylie's just gone world famous. Get up, get up, dress up, show up.
That's it. I want to buy that T-shirt, Kylie. Let me know when it's available.
All
right. Okay, so that's number 2. What's stopping us from getting ahead? So far we've got our purpose or our why, which was number 1, and our goals, which is what we're actually trying to achieve. Next on the list is our identity. So who are we actually identifying ourselves as? Are we turning up to this property development game as a hobby, or are we turning up to it as a business? How are we treating ourselves, which then in turn informs how other people treat us as well?
Absolutely. I remember early on, many years ago, making phone calls, and I'd fumble and bumble my way through the phone calls with agents. And then I started to say, I'm a property developer. And I remember saying it a few times and going, oh my gosh, I'm a property developer, right? And it's all around the identity that comes with that, because if you sit there and say, oh, I'm learning or whatever, and I'm not saying BS yourself, but I'm saying when you start to assume the role of the person that you want to be, you'll be that person. Now, I used to say this in employment sense to my team when they wanted to go for different promotions. I'd say, always behave in the way of the person of the job that you're going for. Not the job you're doing now. You've still got to do that job, but of the job that you're going for. It makes it very easy from a recruitment point of view to appoint that person. And the same here. If you want to be a property developer, you can act like a property developer. You can be a property developer right now. Do some research on property development. Come to a Property Developer Network meetup. You're a property developer, and you need to keep saying those things over and over and over and over. And it's about creating the identity of the person that you want to be. And guess what happens? You become that person.
Absolutely.
One thing I've been sharing with students as they're going through this transition and they're starting building their property development business, and maybe they feel like a bit of a fraud or they're in student mode, and to help to create that shift with them, the languaging that we've used is you're in the professional development phase of building your property development business. And that sounds a whole lot more impressive and a whole lot more empowering than saying, hey, I'm learning how to do property development, or I'm learning how to do a deal. So if you start, you sit down in your office when you're going to work on your property development business, and you identify that you're in the professional development phase. When people go and become professionals in other industries, they have to go through different phases of getting their qualifications and their skills, and becoming a property developer is no different. So when you take that approach, the way that you feel and the results that you get and the actions that you take are very different.
Well, it's a business. Property is a business. I see far too many people who come into property and treat it like a hobby, and they get hobby-like results. And yet the most successful people, and Rob, you were fortunate enough to, obviously you're one, but also others that you spoke to last week in the Superstars session, they treat it like a business. They make business-like decisions. They leave emotion at the door. There's all sorts of numbers, data, analysis, facts, figures, et cetera, et cetera. It's a business. And so we need to start to take that approach. Property development is a business. You can make a lot of money in property development, but you can go out the back door in property development as well. And so you need to start to treat it like a business. Leave that emotion behind. Too many people do far too many things based on emotion, right? And so it's about, no, you need to do things based on the facts and treat this like a business.
And something very important, sorry, cutting you off, Rob.
Something
very important has just popped into my mind. And when we've dealt with students that have had setbacks in the past and they've had deals that have failed or have had negative financial consequences or results, then they've attached that to their identity. So you are not your past failures. You are not your successes. You are you. And you've had failures and you've had successes. So if you're basing your self-esteem on how successful you are or how unsuccessful you've been, then it's going to be really tough for you. So you are not your results. You are someone who has achieved results, or you're not achieving results. But the identity thing with people that have had setbacks can be very tightly knit with them. And they're the people that often we have to spend a lot of work helping them to, do the next part of what we're going to be discussing, creating new beliefs about themselves. But if you are always looking at yourself through the rear vision mirror rather than the windscreen, to use that metaphor, then you're always looking back. So to explain that metaphor in more detail, if no one's heard about that. So when we're looking at life, or when we're looking at a car, you've got a windscreen, it's bigger than the rear vision mirror for a purpose. We want to be able to look back, but we need to be focused on where we're headed. So that's how we need to be living our life and setting our goals, and with the actions that we're taking. Look back, what didn't work, what did we learn from those experiences, but be focused on moving forward and implementing what does work.
I love it.
And I think one of the reasons why people struggle with this is they are worried what other people will think of them. And Tony, you've got a really good saying, which I won't do justice to repeating, but it's, I am not what I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am not what you think I am, mm-hmm. but I am what I think that you think that I am.
You got it.
And what that really means is that we start to worry about what the other person might be thinking, but in reality, they're probably not thinking about that at all. They're probably thinking about their own issues and their own challenges and their own problems. And you're probably the furthest thing from their mind. And yet you have based your value and your worth on what you think they think of you.
Absolutely.
Rather than waiting to actually get the feedback actually from them.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
I'll give you an example. Real estate agents, right? We have to deal with the real estate agent, and a real estate agent doesn't call us back, right? So then a lot of the people will go, oh my gosh, the agent doesn't like me. Oh my gosh, the agent isn't going to give me the deal. Oh my gosh, he's not being helpful. Whop, 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 right? Well, guess what? Maybe the agent's exceptionally busy. Maybe the agent's got a family emergency. Maybe there's so many other things going on in that agent's mind. But like you said, Rob, we can change the way that we feel in an instant based on how we think about that particular situation, right? And it happens all the time. All the time I see that. I just used the example around the agent, but it's about it's what's the saying is what someone thinks about you is none of your business. None of it. You can't control it, right? So get over it. Move on with things, right? Because it's out of your control. You have to focus on what's within your control. You can't control what someone else thinks about you, says about you, doesn't say about you. It doesn't matter. But by golly, and this is the biggest fear. I know we're going to touch on fears soon. Maybe I've jumped the gun too early, but this is the biggest fear. Rob's nodding, so I have. Okay, totally unlike me. The biggest fear that people, I believe, that people have is the fear of being criticized by other people. That's the biggest one, not the fear of failure. Fear of failure is big, but it's then the next bit beyond the fear of failure, which is I have now failed. Now all the naysayers are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to give it to me. And they're going to say, Tony, we told you shouldn't have done that. You should have left it to someone else. You weren't good enough. You're too old. You're too young. Whop, 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 right? That's the fear there that people are paralyzed by. And the thing that I love about the Property Developer Network is that it's a network of like-minded people in the property development space, because Jim Rohn talks about you're the average of your 5 closest people, right? And so if the people around you are bringing you down and are holding you back, and you know that you should be somewhere else, then find that other place. And if it's a Property Developer Network, then I know that Rob and the team will welcome you with open arms, because it's about having the like-minded people to help support you, collaborate with you, encourage you, pick you up, etc. So that's a big one, the fear of being criticized. And it happens with, not just the students, it happens with everybody, with everything. It's not just a property specific thing either.
Well, and Brené Brown. Oh, sorry, Rob. Oh, I was going to say Brené Brown pops into my mind. If any of you have heard of her, if not, look her up. And she talks about who you're listening to, or who you focused on. Are you focused on the people that are sitting in the cheap seats that have an opinion, or are you focused on the other people that are in the arena with you having a go? So it's not the people that aren't out there doing anything. Their opinions don't matter. It's the people that are out there having a go, doing the hard stuff, challenging themselves, stepping up day after day. They're the opinions that you need to be listening to, or the people that you need to be listening to and getting feedback from them. It's not the people sitting in the cheap seats. I always get tongue twisted when I say that. The cheap seats in the grandstands who are just onlookers. When you think about it like that, it's just so empowering.
Well, also a lot of people are betraying their insecurities onto you. So it's like, oh my gosh, don't go and do that thing. It's more of an expression of them than it is about you, And again, this whole herd mentality, it's like, we don't want you to leave our herd. So as you start to pull away from this particular herd, maybe this negative herd or whatever it might be, they're holding you back. It's like, don't go, don't leave us, right? But I have many many sayings, and another one is, may your shoes follow your heart. Right. And thank you. Well, my shirt will be coming out shortly, so we'll do a swap. Right. So it's all around, we go back to point number one, which is when you find the reason that you should be doing something, make sure that your shoes are following that you're walking in that direction.
I think kind of closing the loop on this, some of the reasons why people don't treat it like a business is because they're worried about what other people are thinking. And yet the irony is that people can only think that of you because you're not treating it professionally. You're not treating it with the fullest of intent. And if you don't believe in you, then how is it possible that others can believe in you? When you're going out to seek money partners, even on your very first deal, if you don't believe that you're actually in this full-time as a business and going to make the most of it, then why would someone else invest in you? But they need to know, like, and trust you before they give you their money, but they can't do that if you're not giving them, I guess, the full integrity of you going in all in.
Well, the confidence too. And I always get the students to reverse engineer this. It's like, well, put yourself in the shoes of the person who's got the money. Would you give the money to someone who's coming across timid, uncertain, lacking confidence? Of course you wouldn't. You've worked so damn hard to get the money in the first place. So then when we reverse that and we say, okay, you're out there seeking money partners, JV partners, etc., you have to come across sure about yourself, confidence. Right. And that's the identity. Assume the identity, right? Assume the identity. Don't wait until you've got that thing and then go, oh, now I'm going to be a successful property developer, because guess what? It's not going to happen. You have to assume the role, the identity of a successful property developer now, and do the things that successful property developers do. And guess what happens? You become a successful property developer. As opposed to, I'll do it when.
Which segues into our fourth point, which is values and beliefs. Because if you don't believe that you're that successful property developer, then you're not going to take the actions that it takes to be one. And it becomes a self-fulfilling circle that if you believe, then people start to believe in you. And if you don't believe, then of course people aren't going to believe in you. So, limiting beliefs are one of those critical things that slow us down. We talk about, Tony Robbins talks about, we get what we need, we don't get what we want. And the reason we don't get what we want is because too many times we're actually comfortable with what we've already got. And so we don't actually put the effort in to chase it. And so those people who are hungry because they need that outcome, they're in a job that they know there's only 12 months to go, or they've been made redundant, or, those people who have to make it work, they're the ones that inevitably throw everything at it, and they're the ones that get out.
Well, it's commitment versus interest. And I was having a chat doing my live with Luke this morning about this. It's commitment versus interest. There's so many people that are interested in property development. Oh, I'd like to get into property development. Oh, I'd like to create wealth out of property development. But are you truly committed to doing the things that's required to be successful in property development? And I would argue that the majority of people that I come across are not truly committed. And it's about getting committed to doing that thing. And, to take another Tony Robbins story, he talks about when you take the island, you burn the boat. So there's no turning back. You're either going to die on the island or you're going to kill on the island. Either way, you're not getting back in that boat. And so that's the thing. But here's the thing, you don't need to have an urgent situation in your life to create this out. Right? So don't wait until you got $10 in the bank to then go, oh, now I better get my stuff together. Or from a health point of view, don't wait until you've gone and had a heart attack to then say, oh, I should probably get a bit fit and healthy now. Like, do it now. Don't wait. Get committed now. Find the thing. And again, if you follow the steps that we've gone through, and we've still got more to go, but you start with purpose, you get clear on your goals, you work on your identity, and now we're talking about beliefs. When you follow the steps through, that's what's going to ensure that you're phenomenally successful.
A lot of people have limiting beliefs. I keep cutting you off, Rob.
Yeah, you're so rude, Kylie. It's terrible.
Rude. A lot of people have limiting beliefs and they don't even realize that they have them. And so what is a belief? So a belief is a story that you make up that you believe to be true. So if you have beliefs that aren't serving you, well, why not change that belief? Firstly, you need to become aware that you've got this belief that's not serving you, and then create a new one. So I hear a lot of people saying, I'm not good at feasibilities, I'm not good at numbers. That's a limiting belief that you're telling yourself. So I'm learning how to become better at doing feasibilities. I'm upskilling in learning how to do numbers, those kinds of things. So you need to be able to reframe those beliefs that you have. So if you could believe anything, believe something that's going to serve you and help you to move forward. Some examples of, you go, Tony.
No, I was just saying the thing with that is that the problem with a lot of beliefs, Kylie, is that the majority of this sits in our subconscious mind. So we're not even aware of it. So 90% of the things that we do, we're not even aware that we're doing it, right? And we become aware down the track. And I'll give you an example. So driving to work, so many people drive to work. And how often have you driven to work? You've driven the same way to work for the last 5 years, and you hop in your car and you leave your garage, and all of a sudden you arrive at your work and you go, oh my gosh, like I've just arrived. Like you don't even think about it because you've done it so often. And so that's the same with beliefs. You act in a particular way, something happens, a trigger happens, and you respond or you react in a particular way. And so the key here is around self-awareness. The key is becoming aware that you're acting in a particular way, that you're acting with fear, that you're procrastinating, that you've got doubt, that you're blaming, that you're judging, that you're hating, whatever it might be, about becoming aware of what you're doing. Now, just because you're aware still doesn't mean that you'll be able to be successful, because there's the other A, which is called action. So self-awareness plus action equals transformation or equals change. So you've got to be self-aware, you've got to take action on it. So it's about getting yourself self-aware. And if I could leave people or give people 2 tips on how you can start to become self-aware, it's ask yourself a couple of questions each and every day. First question is, what is it that went well today? What did I do well today? What were the great things that I did today? And there's a whole power in gratitude and happiness, right? But ask yourself that, because if people generally say, Kylie, you and I in our coaching sessions, if we say to people, hey, how you going? we'll get this massive tale of woe. That went wrong, that fell over, that didn't work, boop, 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 boop. But when we ask the question, what went well? Oh, I've got to think about the things that went well. The next question you want to ask yourself is, what can I do differently moving forward? Not what went wrong. Let's not hammer ourselves, because again, that's happened. We can't change it. But what can I do differently? How can I act, respond in a different way moving forward? And you can ask those two questions of yourself. You don't need to have a paid coach. You ask them each and every day, each and every night. Ask those two questions, and now you're going to start to become aware. And then the next step, as I mentioned, is putting into practice the things that you're becoming aware of.
And that awareness thing is one of those things where sometimes we can catch ourselves having just said something negative, and then we don't know how to back out of it. And that negative space, as you touched on, Tony, it's reinforcing to that subconscious brain. So I'll touch on one that Kylie said a couple of moments ago. So I'm no good at feasibilities. So you hear it come out of your mouth. But when you hear it come out of your mouth, when you say it like that, it comes out like a statement, which then reinforces to your subconscious mind that that is a fact. But if you just add one word to that same statement, if you can catch yourself in that moment, if you can add the one word, and that one word is yet. I'm no good at feasibilities yet. It changes that statement into a question. And as soon as you change it to a question, then your subconscious mind can then open up to the idea that you can then learn how to do feasibilities. And then at that point, once it's aware that it can actually learn it, at that point, it starts to become hungry and curious to say, well, how do I do that? So, if we're going to catch ourselves in the moment, becoming aware, I would say learn that one word, throw that one word at the end of our sentences. That'll help us massively.
Yeah, another saying is, be careful what you say to yourself, because your mind is listening. Thoughts become things, and these aren't sayings that I have made up or any of us have made up. These have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Thoughts become things, right? What you think about, you become, and you want to be so aware of the thoughts that are going on. Consciously, let's take weight loss. Consciously, I think the majority of people know that you need to eat right, move a little bit, drink some water, and get a good night's sleep. I think generally speaking, but yet people don't do it. People don't do it because subconsciously they're not aware of all the things that are going on, right? And these are the limitations that are holding people back. These have come from your childhood. These have come from poor experiences. Kylie, you touched on before about bad experience in the past, maybe when someone's lost money or whatever it might be, from your parents, from teachers, from the news. This is where all these beliefs have come from. And in the middle of the word belief is a 3-letter word called lie, L-I-E, right? You're making this stuff up. You can make up great beliefs and you can make up rubbish beliefs. The sad fact is we tend to make up rubbish beliefs, and those beliefs tend to be ceilings that we don't crash through, right? And so it's about recognizing what you're doing or not doing, and then starting to put some steps in place to change it. And one of the best ways to overcome limiting beliefs is to form empowering beliefs that are the opposite. So take what you just said, Rob, around that whole no good at feesos. Opposite of I don't like it is I love it, right? And we go through in the psychology weekend the above the line, below the line. So it's about coming up with the opposites. I don't like speaking to agents. Hey, I love speaking to agents. I love talking to agents, right? I love talking to agents because they have all this knowledge and they can help me become an area expert in my particular suburb, right? So you want to start to change and form those empowering beliefs.
Hey guys, I'm conscious of time, and we've still got another 3 topics to go, and haven't even taken any questions from our audience. So loving the chat.
Are you suggesting that I'm talking a lot, Rob?
I'm not
totally out of character for me. Kylie, stop nodding.
We spent a lot of time together, Tony, online. I know.
So topic number 4. So our capabilities. So this is where recognizing, I guess, and taking the time to actually do a strengths and weaknesses exercise and go, well, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And how do I actually put a plan in place to actually resolve that? What education should I be seeking? What coaching or mentoring, or how can I actually solve that problem that's actually sitting under the covers, actually stopping me from moving forward?
So I think you need to be
go, Colleen.
strategic about what you need to learn next, what actions you need to implement next. So when we're going through this, with new students, you don't have to learn how to do everything all at once. It's plan it out, map it out, be strategic about what skill you need to learn next so that you don't become overwhelmed and get stuck. It's all about planning. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you. It's about being resourceful. A lot of people don't do things because they say, I don't know how to do that. Before I ever did my first development, I didn't know how to do that either, and we all do something for the first time once, right? And so it's about being resourceful. It's about having the drive, the determination, the commitment to go, well, I'm going to figure this out. And who do I need to go to, right? And in property development, if I think about my journey, I went to a meetup. It's like, I'm going to get into property development. I went to a meetup and I spoke to, guess what? Property developers. So it's about being resourceful and having that determination to figure this stuff out. And here's the other thing. No matter what you're trying to achieve, I'll guarantee you that someone's already done it. So respectfully, it's not like you're pioneering something. So find someone who's gone before you, emulate that success, follow the blueprint. They've left breadcrumbs for all of us. Go and follow that, and you're going to be phenomenally successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it before, the fact that we haven't yet done our first deal. I'd encourage you to look at every single massive property development company out there, whether it be a Lend-Lease or a Meriton or somebody like that. They had to start with deal number one, right? Every single one of them had to start with deal number one. And when you go back in time, it's amazing when you start to look at their history and their feedbacks at how many of them started with a basic reno or a basic 2-lot subdivision or a small little stack one at the back of a house. All those little things that then grow into big things. The biggest challenge that I see when it comes to the education and mentoring side of things is, I think everyone is clear that education and mentoring is a critical path to our success. But what they're not clear on is how to actually choose the right education and the right mentoring. And many, many times we're tricked into a slick salesman at the front of the stage, selling their wares, saying how fantastic their particular strategy is, and not doing any discredit to the capability of the person or the capability of their product. But if it doesn't suit your goal, and if it doesn't suit your purpose, the two very things that we start with, then it won't be good for you. The person who sits right beside you, if it does suit their goals and it does suit their purpose, it'll be fantastic for them. So, it's not the course that's changed. It's the fact that we haven't taken the time to see whether or not it actually fits or aligns with where we're going. And so that's why it's really important to go back to, what is your purpose? What is your goal? And more importantly, what is your strategy in what you're trying to actually execute, and say, is this particular course, is this particular educator the right one to take me towards my goal? So a really basic question that you should be asking yourself is, does this take me towards or away from my goal? And if everything that you look at, whether any problem that arises, any decision that you've got to make, if you ask yourself that question, does it take me closer to or further away from my goal? Then one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to make a conscious, active choice to move towards your goal, or you'll recognize that you don't have a goal, in which case you can go back a step and actually set the goal in the first place.
Absolutely. And then again, it's about start with end in mind. Start with end in mind. The clearer you can be on where you're going, the easier it is to know, am I on or off track? It's just that the majority of people are not clear with this. It's just too fuzzy. They're all over the place and they're doing stuff. And there's a distinct difference between being busy and being productive. A lot of people are busy. I'm doing stuff and I'm flat out. But if you're not doing the things that take you to where you want to get to, then it doesn't matter. I use the analogy of when they shoot a rocket from Earth to the moon. If that trajectory is off by 1%, that rocket misses the moon by 6,709 kilometers, 1% off target. So you can do an enormous amount of activity, but if you're just being busy, then it's never, ever, ever going to take you to where you want to get to. And that's the whole idea of get clear on the goal, start with end in mind, and make sure that you've got this very clear plan between the goal and where you are.
And a constant and never-ending improvement process. So Canny, constant and never-ending improvement. So when you say 1%, if we only recognize that 1% at the end of the journey, it's really hard to change course. But if we are constantly reviewing what it is that we've done, and we do that minor little incremental change at the start, it's such a minor little change can make the massive difference. Tony Robbins talks about that, the 2-degree shift. A golfer's golf swing, if it's 2 degrees off, then it will land, in the bushes. But if it's perfectly sweet on, it'll go straight down the fairway, and that 2 degrees can make a massive difference in our outcomes.
Yep.
And can I add one thing here? That 2 millimeter shift can also be applied internally within us. So when you're just sitting here, you probably know what I'm about to say. I just saw you sit up straighter, Rob. But if you were to make a shift in the way that you're sitting right now and just shift your chest back 2 millimeters, so you're lifting your heart up 2 millimeters, that has a massive difference on the way that you feel. So whilst we can be doing this with actions, it can also be about the way that we're holding our body and the way that we're carrying ourselves. So if you're sitting at your desk and starting to feel like you don't have any energy and starting to feel a little bit flat, just make that 2 millimeter shift. And when you do that, it just opens you up and it feels different. Just a little tip for the moment.
I think it's a wonderful tip. And again, it goes back to the identity. Assume the identity of the person that you want to be, of that property developer. Walk like a property developer, talk like a property developer. So no, terrific points. Wonderful.
Absolutely. So that was number 5. So number 6 is our behaviors, and more importantly, the behaviors where we are taking action towards those goals that we were talking about earlier on. So if we are, and our behaviors of treating, having our identity as a business, and our behaviors of acting out those positive beliefs. So all of those behaviors are critical to actually executing on all the perfect framework that we set up, the foundations that we put forward before us. Our behaviors will actually determine whether or not we actually execute on that.
Absolutely. And here's the thing with that. The majority of people just don't start. And they don't start because they wait for every single thing to be perfect. And then when it's all lined up and it's perfect, now I'm going to take my first step, as opposed to being vulnerable and open to having a go, being prepared to make mistakes, being prepared to fumble and bumble and stumble along. And you touched on before around this whole relentless learning piece. Learn. Mistakes is where the magic happens. You have to make a start. Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step. You have to make that first step. The other thing around taking action is that, again, using your program, there's an enormous amount of knowledge and information, and it's incredible. It really is. But if you choose not to do anything with all of that, what does it really matter? Right? So it's great knowledge, it's great information, it's really quite deep. But if you do nothing with it, it doesn't really matter. So you've got to take the action.
A lot of people beat themselves up around the action that they haven't taken. I've just jumped in there, Rob. They beat themselves up about again.
Tony set me up for the perfect segue. And
all right,
I love it.
Go.
No, Kylie, I love it. I keep going. I think it's terrific. What you're doing? Go for it. Just dive in there.
Mixing things up right now.
Yeah, dive in there.
So a lot of people can get really stressed and beat themselves up about the action that they're not taking. And that can sometimes lead into anxiety and all this terrible stuff that they start feeling within themselves. And I think the key to this, and the most self-loving thing that you can do, is actually to be self-disciplined. So it's doing the things that you need to do so that you're not going to feel like crap, so that you don't have a reason to beat yourself up. So follow your plan, do the daily actions that you need to take, exercise, get your endorphins pumping so that you have those feel-good chemicals in your body. Follow your plan. It's keeping your promises to yourself is actually the greatest key to building your confidence. So those people that are lacking confidence generally haven't been keeping promises to themselves. They haven't been taking action. They've been letting themselves down a little bit every single day of the week, over and over and over again, and they start to lose trust within themselves. So when you're self-disciplined and you take action and you keep keeping promises to yourself, you're going to be amazed at how you feel.
Absolutely.
Does that segue still work, Rob?
No, it doesn't. You've completely destroyed it. But either way, let's just rewind. So Tony set me up perfectly for what I'm about to say. But yeah, here we are anyway. So this is a mantra that that I live and breathe by. Okay, and I would encourage others to take this on. Okay, so firstly, when we start to look at things, we all have dreams as to how and where we want to go. We wake up with these delusions of grandeur of what it is that we want to do. But when we actually write that down, it becomes a goal. And many of us don't take the time to take that idea, that germination of an idea, and actually write it down as a goal. And so if you don't write it down, it tends to stay as a fantasy. Okay, and which means we never do anything that moves towards it or the like, and it just disappears as one of those passing thoughts. If we then take that goal and break it down, that becomes a plan. But if you don't break it down, that goal just becomes a wish. And Tony touched on it before, the number of times where we actually set these New Year's resolutions, January 1st, this is what I'm going to do, but we don't actually put a plan in place to go and execute upon that. And so it just becomes a wish or even a fantasy or a fallacy. But then when we break that plan down and take action on that broken down plan, then it starts to become reality. And unfortunately, if you don't take the action, it just becomes a piece of paper. And so it doesn't matter if you've got a great idea that then turns into a goal. It doesn't matter if that goal is broken down into a plan, but it does matter if that plan then has action that sits behind it. So even if you've not taken the process of planning out and mapping out your life, like Tony said before, and putting a GPS in, if you are at least taking action, then you're going to be progressing forward. And so my encouragement to everyone is to say, do something towards your goal every day. One thing, one step, one phone call, one email, one something, and you have no choice but to move forward. And it's amazing when you take a step every single day, that when you look back in 6 months' time, how far you've actually come.
Well, it's progression over perfection. That's what it is. We're so in sync, Kylie. It's just making progress, right? Not waiting for things to be perfect, because guess what? They never ever will be. And so the reason that people don't do things is because of fear. Let's go back to where we were. It's because of fear. And it's because my mind, your mind, everyone's mind has one role in life, and that's to keep us safe and survive. And it will avoid dangerous things at all cost. And what we've gone and done is there's two types of fear. There's danger, that is genuine danger. That is, someone is going to shoot you, or you're going to get run over, or whatever it is. But then there's irrational fear with an I, irrational fear. Speaking to that agent, putting a low offer in, asking that boy or girl out, public speaking. These are all irrational fears. But yet we've gone and conjured up these images in our mind about being dangerous. The mind wants to avoid it. So the way you overcome it is you do it. And you do it once, and then you do the thing. And how often does it happen when you've worked up and you're all anxious about doing something, and you do it, and then you come out the other end and you go, that wasn't so bad after all. And then you go and do it again, and you go and do it again, and you go and do it again. And guess what happens when you keep doing this? Each time you do that, your mind is saying to you, you are not in danger, you are safe. you are safe. You are safe, and you're refining your skills, and your mind saying you're safe. And then you're just off to the races because you just keep doing the thing over and over and over again. But trust me, at the start, it's going to feel yucky. It's going to be awkward and uncomfortable and horrible. It happens for all of us, for me, for Kylie, for Rob, for all of us, for everybody. But you have to push through that. And the reason you push through that is because the thing down the road is too big. It means too much. You're so committed to it. You're so connected to it. And again, just go through the sequences that we've gone through. So if you're just tuning in now, you know, we're going through a sequence to help get you moving. But you have that something down the road that I've got to get through this thing here in front of me because that thing down the road is just too big to let go of.
Absolutely. And in the interest of time, we have one more topic, one of the 7 tips, and that is our environment. And I can't remember who the quote actually came from, but Tony, you mentioned it before. Our network equals our net worth, right? So the people that we hang around, the places that we're at, the peers that we hang around, they tend to be the behaviors that we start to enact.
Yeah, I heard a saying recently, which was, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You know, and so it's about, if you aren't happy with where you're at in life, then find new friends. Find friends that can inspire you. You can aspire to be like. They can support you, collaborate with you, contribute to your learning, whatever it might be. Find new friends. And this is not easy. And I've had to do this. We've all had to do this. There are people in your life, and you know who they are, that are holding you back. And in the majority of cases, it's those that are closest to you. And you have to have those conversations. You have to have the tough conversations. Otherwise, you're never going to get to where you want to get to. And so it's about finding new friends. And we talk about the property developer network, right? The community of like-minded property developers, and, you know, 8 years old now, right? Which is amazing, Rob. So a real credit to you and to everyone else who's been involved along the last 8 years. But it's a community of like-minded people. So if you find that your current friends network isn't helping you achieve your property development goal, well, hello, we're over here waiting for you in the property developer network.
So we touched on this before about who you share what with and who you go to for advice. So there are some people that we just have to spend time with, whether it's family, so we can't eliminate everybody, but we can certainly build those empowering networks that we can go to. So we may have our snipers in our life that when we tell them our goals and our dreams and our aspirations, they've always got comebacks that shoot you down or that make you feel like maybe you're crazy wanting to aspire to achieve these things. So you get very selective about who you share what with. You share your goals and your property aspirations with the people that you meet like in our network or other like-minded people, like Tony said. Be very, very selective about who you share what with. When you're wanting to get parenting advice, go to other parents. When you want property advice, go to people educated in the property space. Don't have a barbecue and talk about property with just anybody at a barbecue, because you start to take on their thoughts and opinions about what's going on in the world. Like everyone's got all these thoughts and opinions around COVID and around this and around that right now. So be very, very selective and narrow with who you're getting what information from, and then choose to eliminate, disregard, shut down conversations if people that you're speaking with don't actually know what they're talking about in the space that you need good support or good knowledge in.
Well, the reality is that as humans, we are a herd pack. And so whatever herd we are hanging around with, whatever network we are hanging around with, when we drift away from the herd, that herd will try to protect us and draw us back into it. So if you're hanging around with people who are not into property, they're going to see property as this fearful thing. And so when you start to drift away, all their best wishes and their love towards you is to try and protect you, which is to tell you that thing is dangerous and don't do that. And that's okay, that's natural, and we need to recognize that that's the case. So they're going to discourage us from doing that and encourage us to come back to that pack. But if we find a pack or a herd that is doing property development and is going in the direction that you want to go, then once again, they are going to try and protect you within the nature of the herd. And so when you drift away and stop doing property development, guess what? They're going to draw you back into the pack, and they're going to draw you back into, hey, you should be doing this. This is what you said you wanted to do. And so it's really important that you hang around with people that are going to empower you on your goals and empower you on your beliefs and empower you on on your purpose and your identity. All those things that we've been touching on through this whole conversation, the people that you hang around with are the people that are actually going to give you the power to do that.
I love it.
When you, if you hang around with rat bags, chances are you're going to be a rat bag.
Yeah, correct.
If you hang around with good people, chances are you're going to be a good person. If you hang around with property developers, chances are you're going to be a property developer. And luckily for you guys, you are part of the largest property development network in Australia as Property Developer Network here. And so you're in the right crowd. So make sure that you come to events, make sure that you socialize and catch up with peers, both at the meetups and afterwards socially, and even, catch up with people during the week. Find people that you can shadow their projects, find people you can do joint ventures with, find kindred spirits doing the same strategies as you. And there are thousands of them in our network actually doing the same.
We'll also contribute to social media, Rob. So at the moment, it's a little bit hard for us to come face to face. I know that I've been very fortunate where we all live up here, that we had our meeting a couple of weeks ago, but for other states, it's they're doing it a bit tough. So contribute in the social media space. So get on the Property Developer Network group, the page, wherever you go to, and share, ask questions of people. One of the things that really struck out to me when I first started in property development back in 2015 is just the amount of people that were only too happy to help me. Like, it just blew me away. I remember initially thinking, what are they up to? Like, I was a little bit sort of skepticism, but I've now been involved in this community for 5 years, and it's like, they're just genuine people who just want to pay it forward. I think it's one of the other things, we've talked about, hey, find people who can help you, blah, 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 but also why not help others? Like Kylie and I and Rob get to live pretty special lives in the sense that we get to help other people. We get to make an impact on helping others. And you don't need to be a paid coach or a paid mentor to be able to have that experience. You can help someone else. Right? So if you've been involved in property development for 6 months, guess what? Someone's just decided to get into property development today. There's something that you can share with them. What did you learn in your first 6 months that perhaps you could impart on someone who's just starting out in property development today? I was at the meeting last week in Brisbane. I think that, there was about 80 odd in the room, but about a quarter of the room were newbies, never been to a meeting before. And it's wow. So there's so many people there that we can impart things on to help and to pay it forward, because it's amazing to be able to do it, and it's the right thing to do, and it keeps the dream alive for everybody. And that's what happened to me. You, Rob, were one of those people, and others were those people who paid it forward to me, little old me, many, many years ago. And now for me, I have a real sense of obligation and purpose to be able to pay it forward to others.
Very good. Now, as we are, I guess, rabbiting on just a little bit, we have gone over the hour, so I'm conscious of the fact that we've not asked any questions of our community. So let's just take this opportunity to wrap up those 7 things. So for those of you who joined late, we've been going through, 7 critical things that are going to help you to take action. So number 1 was finding your purpose or your why. Number 2 was setting the goals that you want to go and action. So, what it is that you actually want to achieve, and make sure those goals are actually aligned with that purpose that you're trying to actually achieve. Number 3 is your identity. So who do you actually identify with? Are you doing this as a hobby, or are you treating this as a business and actually being professional in everything that you do? And are you executing against those goals with purpose, with the integrity that you believe in? Number 4 was values and beliefs. Have you got limiting beliefs that are actually slowing you down, or have you got empowering beliefs that are actually going to be pushing and driving you forward? Number 5 is your capabilities. So identify your strengths and weaknesses, and build on your strengths and go and educate yourself in and around your weaknesses. Make sure that those education elements are going to give you something that is going to help you towards your goals, that are going to help you towards your purpose. You know, don't just do a random course. Find the one that actually slots in exactly where you want to go. Number 6 is behaviors, taking action, making sure that that action is aligned to all of those foundational steps that we've actually put in front of us, so that the purposes and the goals and the identities, so the behaviors we take are actually going to be in alignment with that. And number 7 is your environment. Make sure you're hanging around with people who are aligned with the same place that you want to go and are going to set you up for that success for yourselves. So there are our 7 steps. And that's just the 3 of us rattling on for this little bit. What I think we should do is reach out to the audience and see what questions that they've actually got for us.
Yeah,
so that said, give me 2 seconds while I rifle through Facebook and see who and what we've got out there. So hundreds of people actually saying hello. So I'm just going to do, I guess, the giant hello to absolutely everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a ton of people on board at the moment. So let me see if I can find a couple of questions that are coming through. Now, Luke's got a couple of comments. So awareness about yourself, who you are and what you're about. So absolutely. Kay Wong is saying benefit of the benefit. Well said. What is it that you look for, Rob? I wish I could just meditate all day. I'm not quite sure I understand the, sorry, what?
Oh, let me answer it for you, Rob. So this was when we were talking about purpose and you were talking about the benefit of the money. So for you, your purpose is 1,000 people?
I'm setting 1,000 people financially free by the year 2030. That's my purpose.
See what I did then, Kylie? I'm setting him up to come in there and hit the home run.
Well done, Tony.
Oh yeah, I've been here long enough. Know how it works.
Very good. So see what other questions we've got in here. So there's a couple that are just comments on the fly. So I might actually skip some of them. But so Frank says, yes, property is a business. It took me 1 year to find the first one to subdivide. Absolutely, Frank. And I'm going to say, most people, 6 to 9 months is typical if you're like locked in hard with knowing exactly what you're wanting to do and you've got the right education and mentoring sitting behind you. If you don't have that, then a year and a half is not unreasonable. And if you're trying to find your own way, then it does take a little longer because we have to forge our own path. My encouragement to everyone out there, though, is don't forge your own path. There are thousands of people that have forged the path for you already and already blazoned a trail and cut through the jungle with the machete already. Follow that path and make the path a little bit wider for the next person that comes behind you.
Yep.
John says, the people I know have other small businesses. Sorry, it's whizzing past really quick. There are too many people talking too fast. The people I know who've other small businesses, whether it's a Visa phone shop or investment property to a dentist, have decided to further grow their wealth in property development. Absolutely, John. I'm going to say that 80% of the top 200 richest people in Australia on the BRW Rich List are in and around property and or property development. It's a fantastic place to build your wealth. And property development allows you to do that at scale and also do that at a wholesale rate because we're actually manufacturing the profit ourselves. Felicity's got a comment, prove it, Rob, say it again. I think that was around the comment that I was trying to paraphrase you, Tony, and see if I can get it right again. I am not what I think I am. I am not what you think I am, but I am what I think that you think that I am. There you go, Felicity. I've proven it. So
you're on fire.
There you go. Sean says, love that phrase from
So
from
Tom Bilyau and Jay Shetty interview. So that's where I get it. So just in the spirit of disclosure, it's not me inventing this. This is where I picked it up from. So Sean's seen that interview, but it's such a true phrase where if I think that you like me, then that changes my mood. Versus if I think that you don't like me, then again my shoulders will be slumped, and this happens all of the time. All of the time. What someone says about you, thinks about you, none of your business.
Yes, absolutely. Just trying to, a lot of these are just comments, so I'll skip some of those. Just after picks you up okay, so I think Luke lost his audio for a little bit. So apologies, Luke. Hopefully that didn't happen to everyone. Peter Henley's got a comment, the monkey experiment. I'm not sure what the reference is there, but anyone got any insights into that one? No?
Nope.
No,
not sure.
No. Okay, so Sean has kindly done the link to that Jay Shetty interview. So thank you, Sean. That's greatly appreciated, mate.
Good.
Some people, so John has said, some people like to behind the scenes. As long as you've got a good show, I think that probably would have made a lot of sense in context, but as that was some time ago, it's probably lost its meaning there. So apologies about that, John.
Well, I think at that time we were talking about what other people are saying. So perhaps there's something around people like doing things behind the scenes.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kay Wong has said, truly committed. Tony and Kylie, do you mind to show an example of you truly committed to achieve your goal? Maybe that will inspire all of us here.
Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
So you want to go, Kylie? You go first.
Well, I'll talk about when I was wanting to achieve my goal of becoming a coach.
Yep.
So that was many years ago. I think 2011, I started doing my coaching training. I had 3 children under 6, I think. So 1 at prep, 2 at home, 1 in kindy. Back then, before they started doing all the Zoom stuff, it was all webinar. So no classes were held during the day. So I had, he's now an ex-husband, but a husband who worked FIFO. So he was week on, week off. So it was me with 3 kids, 50% of the time, with all of my classes scheduled between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. at night. So it was hectic. However, I was so committed to achieving my goal of getting my diploma in life coaching that I would have my laptop on the kitchen bench. I'd have 3 kids lined up on stools and high chairs, feeding them with my earphones in, writing notes, and just multitasking the best that I can, going back and listening to the recordings after. So this is what doing what you have to do in order to achieve your goal looks like. Like, it was hard. Sometimes I'm like telling the kids, shh, I've got to ask a question, or sometimes I'm having to zone out a little bit in order to be there and present for them. And I'm not saying it was ideal circumstances all the time, but I'm just saying this is what I did in order to achieve my goal. It was hard. I had to be so self-disciplined. I had to be so organized. I had to teach my kids actually to be respectful of I've got needs too, and that it's not all about them. So I guess there's some life lessons in that. But that's what I did. Just kept showing up week after week after week after week after week, getting through all of my classes so that I could achieve my goal.
Fantastic. Well, I did something around, I did around weight loss. So weight loss, it's out there. There's photos of me all over the internet in my underpants holding newspapers, befores and afters. Yes, but when you go there, I'm conscious I put half the weight back on. So keep the comments to yourself. But in regard to that, for 84 days in a row, I had a goal, and I wanted to accomplish, eating the food that they told me to do, exercise the exercise that they told me to do, and I lost 12 kilos in 12 weeks. That was the first thing. That's what actually got me started way back in 2015. And I said to myself, if I can do this thing, losing the weight that I did, then I can do anything. The other thing that I did was able to leave my job. I set myself a goal. I set myself a goal of the 27th of August, 2018. And was able to leave my job on the 16th of March, 2018. And I got up at 4 a.m. in the morning, every damn morning for 18 months. My kids are a bit older now, but they used to laugh at me because I would go to bed before they went to bed. So it was a real joke in our household, but that's what I had to do to change my circumstances, because even though I had a very good paying job, I was so unhappy. and I needed to commit to change. I knew that no one else was going to do it if I didn't do it for me. So they're probably two of the more public examples that I've got. I'm happy to, be happy privately to share with others, but they're probably more of the two public examples of me absolutely committing to something and following through.
Absolutely. And Sean said, keeping promises to ourselves is as equally or as important as keeping promises to others. Sean, I would say it's not equally, it is more important that your promise to yourself, you need to put yourself first.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are looked after before you can help others. If you don't do that, there's no fuel in your tank. Trying to remember who said this particular expression, but it was the best way to help the poor is to not be one of them. So that applies to everything in your life. The best way to help your family is actually be in a position where you're actually in a position that you can help yourself. Okay, if you can't help yourself, you have no fuel to help others.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. The other thing, it's around raising your standards. So this is the key thing here. It's about raising standards. And I think the point is, and Kylie, you and I, we say this to a lot of the students where, we'll have a coaching session. And so that student will commit to be there at that particular start time and they'll do the session with us. But yet when it's themselves, they won't stick to it. It's like, oh yeah, well, I want to get up at 4 a.m., but no, the alarm's gone and I'll hit snooze and it's a bit cold today and I'll stay in bed. But when it's our meeting, they're there, right? They're there, they're punctual, they're into it, etc. And so it's about having similar standards. In fact, having more standards for yourself, to Rob's point, about putting yourself first. If you can't do this for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. So you need to put yourself as an absolute priority. And when you fill your cup up, you have so much more to give to everyone around you.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's a case of having a little bit of accountability. So when we're doing something new and it's uncomfortable because it's not what you normally do, like what you do every day is what's comfortable and routine for you. And when you want to do something different, that feels uncomfortable, and you can easily fall off the bandwagon at times depending on what's going on for you. So often we're not accountable to ourselves, and we get more done when we're accountable to others. So when we're keeping students accountable and people are checking into us, it's not to create any form of dependency on us as coaches. It's to get them being accountable, taking those actions. And the more you're accountable to us, the more that you're going to become accountable to yourself. So sometimes you need a little bit of support to build that muscle. But at the end of the day, accountability really is what gets you to achieving the things that you want. It would be amazing if we all just had 100% self-accountability and we didn't need coaches and we didn't need support. That would be the dream. Everyone would be achieving massive things every single day of the week, but it's not always the way. So sometimes you do need a little bit of support to get going and to build these new routines and new habits in whatever area of life that it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So lots of people saying love today's session. So Margaret in particular, so important to be reminded. So thank you. John has thrown it out there. Even if you fail, you're still attempted to make progress. John, I'd actually say that failure is inevitable. And that's where we get our most learnings from. The important part is to set yourself up so that you can fail safely and fail fast. And, have a paper fail of a project, not a physical fail. Make sure that you are doing that where you've got somebody looking over your shoulder, and before you go unconditional on a project, have somebody sitting there going, okay, well, let's help you through that and work out whether or not you should actually go and execute. We don't want to learn through a failure that actually has real world consequences where we can. So make sure you do that safely and often. The more we fail, the faster we learn.
And if you're not failing, the reality is you're not having a go. Quite frankly, you're sitting on the couch and you're watching Netflix. So get out there and fail. I fail multiple times on a daily basis, varying scales, but it's about just having a go. And when you have a go at something, you refine that process, you get better at it over time, you learn new things, and it's called growth. And that's where the magic happens. About get out of your comfort zone, get uncomfortable, get comfortable with being really uncomfortable and grow. And that's where the magic happens. And then what happens is your comfort zone then starts to expand. So your comfort zone might start off being this big, but now you're doing all these things, and now your comfort zone might be this big because you're getting better, you're growing, and now your comfort zone's this big. It's called growth. And that is ultimately what I believe one of the real powers of being human is that we have the ability just to grow through life and constantly learn. And I love it. I love learning, new things all the time. And I know you two guys feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always saying to my kids, I'm not perfect and I make mistakes every day of the week. And the more that we can acknowledge our mistakes and learn from them, the more that we're doing in life, and the more that we can move on and make even better decisions moving forward. So I'm doing that to set them up to know that no one expects them to be perfect, because no one is. We're just always making decisions after decisions after decisions. If a decision has the outcome we want, happy days, keep going. If a decision doesn't, we just need to make another decision.
Very good. So huge shout out to my sister Julie, who has joined us some time ago. So hello sis, love you very much. Hope you hung around for the whole show, and it's probably I can't recall the last time I spoke to her, so this is probably her one and only chance to actually get to talk to me.
Well, don't mind us, mate. You just have a chat. We'll just kick back. We'll just sit here and you have a chat to your sister, have a catch up.
Oh, good. Now, lots of people, so Sam and John giving us the history of Meriton and their first deals. So
okay, good
to read about that. So thank you, folks. Peter's gone, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Absolutely. Kamal has said, hang around with dogs and you will get fleas. Yeah, 100%. I guess that comes round to, I guess, the environment that we actually hang around with. So
that's it.
100% for sure. Ali has asked a question, any meetups in Perth? And the answer is not yet, Ali, but if you can grab a few more people, we would love to come. We have delusions of grandeur of taking this thing national. So what we need is more people in your area to actually justify. And we need a little thing called COVID to actually allow us to traverse some borders. So you gather them up and we'll come and do everything we can to spread the love.
Certainly in the short term, Rob, what people can do is they can become an online member.
Absolutely.
So you can encourage all of your WA friends to get a little bit of an experience of PDN in the online side of things, see what it's all about, see the growth, the opportunities, how genuine the people within PDN are. And then from there, that may start to build the community over in the West, which then means once they, open up the borders, then Rob and the crew can travel over to the West.
Well, not only can I will, because my lovely sister who just joined lives in Perth. So I would, any excuse to mean that I actually go get to her, I'm sure that she would greatly appreciate. But to your point, Tony, with regards to the online community, our meetups are, I guess, live streamed every single weekend. So you can turn up to a meeting 3 weekends a month online, no matter where you're physically based. So I would absolutely make sure you do that, Ali.
Yep.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to skip a lot of these because there's a lot of them just saying, thanks, great session. So yes, thank you. That's all greatly appreciated. See if I can find one that we can add some massive value in these closing minutes. How long can property development last in COVID? Last 18 months and the population exceeds dwellings. I won't go into that one in depth, John, other than to say I've done a number of these Sunday sessions talking about the market and how COVID has actually impacted it and I'm going to do another one in a couple of weeks as to, what the implications of the phase 2 lockdowns have been. There's massive impacts that actually create opportunity. So every time there is a negative, there is also a positive. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and where the market is dropping creates opportunity for great buying to pick it up on the upcycle. Warren Buffett says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And I think right now is a time to prepare and educate and get ready to be greedy and take on a number of projects that are going to pick up really well, I guess, going into next year. Because the demand is latent. Population is still growing. People still want to come to Australia, but they can't because the borders are shut. And eventually that tidal wave is going to hit us again. So again, lots of people saying thank you. So I'm thank you in return. Peter says she sells seashells on the seashore. I'm not sure where that one came from.
Is that the get up, dress up and show up?
Oh, she sells seashells.
Maybe it relates to that.
Well,
The
everyone's
three-
trying
what did you
to
call
everyone's
it?
trying
The
to,
three
to
things?
sell their t-shirts today, are they?
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers, how many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
Well, that
that
in
in a
itself
while.
was worthwhile sticking around for. Just that bit right there. That's a reward for still being here 90 minutes in. You get to see that. That's amazing. Always giving.
Do you know what? That has reminded me of one key thing that we didn't include today. And I know we're pumped for time right now, but the thing that we're always talking to our students about is how are you rewarding yourself? So every action that you're taking, you need to be rewarding yourself. You want to build that positive reinforcement with your subconscious mind that when you do things, you get great benefits from doing that. So whether it's sticking to your daily schedule, whether it's doing your suburb analysis, whatever it is that's on your to-do list and the things that you need to be doing, reward yourself, whether that's a cup of coffee, going for a bushwalk, which is something that I love to do on my lunch breaks, going to the movies, whatever it is, you know, we can all create our own list of rewards, but it is so important to be rewarding yourself along the journey because you want to look back and remember all of the great steps behind you and the great things that you've acknowledged and celebrated that you've achieved along the way. It's not a case of when you reach that massive big goal at the end of 5 years, then you get a reward because that's really not that much fun and it's demotivating and it just puts so much expectation on that end thing. So reward yourself every day or as much as you need to on the little things that you do and the big things and the big milestones that you achieve. Can't believe we hadn't mentioned that. That's one of our core things, Tony.
That's fantastic. Yes, it is, and that's amazing, Kylie. Thank you for reminding us. It's key.
So have skipped a lot of the comments in there because they're largely saying thanks, but there's one that's caught my attention, which is a little bit of an inward joke to some of those in our property development formula program. Peter Trong has said that he's watching Rob Flicks, which is a reference to what one of our students, Julie, was saying during the week, where she's swapped her Netflix for watching, I guess, thousands of videos of me, and she's calling it Rob Flicks. So thank you, Peter, for that, and more importantly for Julie for actually coining that phrase. And I think that one has started to stick. You'll
have to rename the videos in the members area, Rob.
Potentially. I think looking at this, that is pretty much kind of the end of what everyone's got to say to us, folks. So been a massive session and really want to thank you guys for hanging around, Tony and Kylie.
Thank you.
Before you run though, what I do want to say is, guys, we are now 8 years old. So Property Developer Network has been around for a very, very long time. And we want to hear your stories as to what we have been doing, running these Sunday sessions, running our meetups, running our training and all sorts of things like that. We want to hear your stories as to how we have been impacting your lives. And in exchange for hearing your feedback, what I'm offering to you guys, so firstly, you can give your feedback by going either scanning this QR code or going to this website, which is propdev.info/feedback. So that's propdev.info/feedback. And I'll put that in the chat window in literally 2 seconds flat. In exchange for anyone who gives us feedback, I am offering a free masterclass on no money down strategies. It is only going to be available to people who give feedback. It's not going to be sold. It's not going to be found anywhere else. It will be completely free for anyone who's taken the time to give us the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, because we only get better by hearing from you guys. And that allows us to go through our own continual improvement process. So we very much want to hear from you. So please, please, please take the time to do that. I will stick that link in literally 2 seconds flat. And a reminder, these Sunday sessions are every single Sunday at 5 p.m. Brisbane time, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So depending upon where you are in the country, and for those of you all the way in Perth, it's a 2-hour difference. And for those of you in Melbourne and Sydney right now, it's exactly the same time, but watch out for daylight saving. And lastly, we run a couple of Facebook communities. So our Property Developer Network group and our development site Deal Hub, where you can get off-market transactions. So folks, that is us. Wow, what a massive session. We are coming up to 2 hours, would you believe? That is massive. So for everyone who has been silly enough to hang around and watch us for this length of time, I thank you kindly from the bottom of my heart. And I am so ever grateful to Tony for being a massive part in starting this journey with me, in kicking my ass to actually start our property development formula program and expanding our network so large, and also grateful for Kylie to come on board and believing in our vision and helping us to take this to a whole nother level. So that said, folks, I'm going to say it is good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
And good night from me.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Clearly, you guys aren't two Ronnie's fans. It's meant to be, it's good night for me and it's good night from him. And if,
no, we're not. Sorry. No,
You're
mate.
showing your age, Rob.
No, nope. No, we're not.
Signing off. See you, folks.
Bye. Bye.